Truths you need to accept about people. Did you know that how you react to your experiences can be more important than the events themselves? Imagine that every challenge you face is an opportunity for growth, a chance to shape your destiny. What would happen if you could turn every obstacle into a springboard for success? In today's video, we're going to explore powerful truths about human nature through the lens of Stoicism. Get ready to discover how this ancient philosophy can offer deep and practical insights for modern life. Are you ready to challenge your perceptions and learn to transform your responses to life experiences? Let's get started. 1. Impact of personal experiences. Have you ever stopped to think about how much your personal experiences shape who you are today? Imagine that each situation you've been through is like a skilled artist working on a clay sculpture. Every moment of joy, every challenge overcome, and even the setbacks we encounter along the way leave their marks, shaping our character and outlook on life. But what's even more fascinating is how we choose to react to these experiences. According to Stoicism, a philosophy that has stood the test of time, it's not the events themselves that define us, but rather how we respond to them. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher, wisely said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of things." Isn't that a revolutionary idea? It empowers us, putting us in control of the narrative of our own lives. Let's think together for a moment. Have you ever experienced a challenging situation that initially seemed insurmountable? Now remember how you faced that obstacle. The determination and resilience you demonstrated in that moment are not just reflections of your strength. They are, in fact, the essence of who you are. It's easy to see that we are not shaped by circumstances, but by the courage with which we face each one. Thus, every choice we make, every response we give to life's challenges, reshapes and strengthens us. This is not just about surviving, but about thriving. Now, I invite you to look at your own experiences in this new light. Think about how you can use your past responses to shape an even brighter and more meaningful future. Are you ready to take on this responsibility and be the sculptor of your own life? In doing so, we connect not only with our deepest essence, but also with a broader community of individuals who share the same journey toward personal growth. Together we can inspire each other to turn every experience, good or bad, into an opportunity to further develop our inner strength and character. Truth number 2, diverse communication styles. Have you ever noticed how the simple act of conversation can become so complex depending on who's on the other side of the conversation? Communication is the most powerful tool we have to connect with the people around us, but its effectiveness often depends on how well we can adapt our communication style to the needs and styles of others. Each person has a unique way of expressing themselves and absorbing information. Some prefer direct and objective dialogues, valuing clarity and conciseness. Others feel more comfortable with conversations that flow in a more emotional and expressive manner. So how can we navigate this diversity and truly achieve mutual understanding? First, it's crucial to develop the skill of listening. Yes, actively listening, trying to understand not only the words but the feelings and thoughts behind them. When you truly listen, you begin to notice nuances in communication that can guide you on how to respond in a way that is both receptive and understanding. Seneca, a Stoic thinker, reminds us that if you want to be loved, love. This suggests that we should strive to offer the type of communication we expect in return. Imagine you're talking to a colleague who prefers details and concrete data. If you adapt your dialogue to include this information, you'll likely see a much more engaged and productive response. On the other hand, if you're speaking to someone who values emotional connection more, sharing your own experiences and feelings may open doors to deeper and more meaningful communication. Now, think about how this applies in different contexts. at work, at home, with friends. Each situation may require a fine adjustment of how we present our ideas and feelings. Have you ever tried adapting your communication style to better connect with someone? What were the results? By being versatile in how we communicate, we not only improve our relationships, but also become more empathetic and understanding. This not only enriches our interactions, but also strengthens us as individuals and members of a community. So, how about we take this on as a challenge? Let's try out different communication styles and observe how it can change our interactions. In doing so, we'll not only be improving our communication skills, but also contributing to a world where understanding and connection prevail over misunderstandings and distance. Are you ready for this journey? Truth 3. Varied responses to stress. Have you ever noticed how people react differently to stressful situations? Some seem to keep their cool, while others may feel overwhelmed quickly. This diversity of stress responses is deeply human, but did you know that we can learn to manage these reactions more effectively through principles of Stoicism? Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, teaches us that while we cannot control all external events, we can master our response to them. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great names of Stoicism, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is a powerful concept, especially when it comes to handling stress. Let's explore how this works in practice. Consider two people facing the same tight deadline at work. One may feel anxious, perceiving every passing minute as a grain of sand falling in an hourglass. The other, though aware of the pressure, chooses to focus on what can be done in each moment without being swept away by anxiety. This second approach is quite stoic. It involves acknowledging the pressure, but choosing a response that maintains serenity and efficiency. This doesn't mean that Stoicism makes us indifferent or robotically calm. On the contrary, this philosophy encourages us to recognize our emotions, but also to question whether our automatic reactions are helpful or harmful. Will excessive worries solve the problem faster, or does it only increase stress without contributing to the solution? Here comes a fundamental aspect of Stoicism, the practice of reflection and self-analysis. When we encounter stress, it's an opportunity to ask ourselves, am I reacting constructively? Is there a more effective way to approach this situation that helps me maintain peace of mind? And how can we cultivate this skill? It starts with self-awareness. Recognizing your usual tendencies in response to stress is the first step to begin changing them. Then practice restructuring your thoughts. Instead of thinking, "This is impossible," try, "This is a challenge, but I can manage it one step at a time." Why don't we try this together now? Think of a recent situation that caused you stress. Reflect on your initial reaction and ask yourself if there's a more stoic way to respond next time. In doing so, we not only manage stress better, but also empower ourselves to live a fuller and less anxious life. Now imagine the impact this could have on your life if you began applying these principles regularly. Are you ready to experience this transformation and start living with more tranquility and control, even under pressure? Truth 4. Inherent judgment. Have you ever found yourself making quick judgments about situations or people, only to later discover that your initial assessment was incomplete or even mistaken? It's a quite common aspect of the human condition to judge quickly, a skill that in ancient times could save our lives, but in the modern world often leads to misunderstandings and hasty judgments. Stoic philosophy offers us a valuable tool to deal with this impulse: the suspension of judgment. Stoics believe that we should resist the urge to draw immediate conclusions and instead dedicate ourselves to more attentive and thoughtful observation. Epictetus, a notable Stoic philosopher, advises us, "Demand not that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will be happy." This teaching encourages us to accept events as they come, avoiding hasty judgments that often don't correspond to reality. Let's think about a practical example. Imagine a colleague not responding to an important email. It may be easy to assume that they are being negligent or disinterested. However, if we apply the Stoic principle, we refrain from making an immediate judgment. Perhaps they are facing personal challenges or simply overwhelmed. By waiting and seeking more information, we can discover the true reason behind their delay, which can completely change our perception of the situation. This approach not only avoids misunderstandings, but also fosters empathy and patience. Instead of reacting with frustration, we can respond with understanding, opening space for more constructive and less contentious dialogues. Now let's reflect. How many times could you have benefited from suspending judgment? Think of past situations where taking a pause to gather more information could have led to a more positive outcome. This exercise is not just about avoiding judgment errors, but about cultivating a calmer and less reactive state of mind. Implementing this mindset shift requires constant practice. It's a daily exercise in self-control and reflection. Each time we encounter a new situation, we have the chance to apply this pause, this breath, before judging. And why not start now? The next time you feel inclined to jump to hasty conclusions, try to remember this discussion. Take a step back, gather more data, and see how this new approach can transform not only your relationships, but also your own peace of mind. Are you ready to accept the challenge of seeing the world with a more thoughtful and less hasty gaze? Truth number 5. Universal insecurities. Have you ever realized that regardless of who we are or where we come from, we all share a very fundamental human trait? I'm talking about insecurities. Yes, those little voices that whisper doubts in our ears, questioning our ability, appearance, or even our worth. It's something universal, something that in a way connects us in our humanity. Recognizing that each of us carries our own insecurities can be a powerful first step in creating a foundation of empathy and mutual understanding. But how can we transform this understanding into something constructive? How do we positively deal with these internal voices that limit us? First and foremost, it's essential to adopt a posture of acceptance. Acceptance doesn't mean resigning or giving up, but rather acknowledging our insecurities as part of who we are. Instead of fighting against them, we can embrace them with compassion. Imagine what it would be like to treat yourself with the same kindness and patience that you offer to a good friend. This change in attitude towards ourselves can open doors to greater personal growth and self-acceptance. Furthermore, sharing our insecurities can be a powerful tool. By talking about our doubts and fears, we not only alleviate the weight they may have on us, but also allow others to see themselves reflected in our experiences. This can be incredibly liberating and form deep bonds of understanding and mutual support. Another important aspect is focusing on personal development. Each insecurity, each point of doubt about ourselves can be seen as an invitation for growth. If we fear not being competent enough in an area, it can motivate us to seek new knowledge and skills. If we worry about how others perceive us, we can work on strengthening our self-esteem and authenticity. And now, a question for you to reflect on. How have your insecurities shaped the choices you make? Have you thought about how to transform each of these insecurities into steps to achieve a more fulfilled version of yourself? Adopting a constructive approach to dealing with insecurities not only alleviates emotional weight, but also empowers us. It encourages us to be truer to ourselves and to others, building a more authentic and satisfying life. So, the next time you feel insecure, remember that you're not alone in this journey. We all share these feelings to some extent, and together we can support each other to turn insecurity into inspiration. How about starting this change today? Truth 6. Self-interest in relationships. Have you ever stopped to think about the role self-interest plays in our daily interactions? The idea that each of us acts motivated by our own interests may seem a bit cynical at first glance, but as we explore this notion more deeply, we discover that it can actually enrich our interpersonal relationships. Self-interest isn't necessarily selfish or negative. It's a natural impulse that can be the driving force behind many of our actions, from choosing a career to establishing personal relationships. Understanding that each person around us is also motivated by their own interests can help us better understand their actions and reactions. By recognizing self-interest in ourselves and others, we can begin to see interactions in a new light. Instead of judging someone as selfish, we can ask, what interests are driving this person? How do my interests intersect or diverge from theirs? This approach not only broadens our understanding of others' motivations, but also offers insights into how we can collaborate more effectively. Let's think about how this applies in the workplace, for example. If a colleague is resisting a proposed change, it may be easy to interpret this resistance as stubbornness or lack of vision. However, if we consider that they may have legitimate concerns about how the change will affect their own work or goals, we can approach the situation more empathetically and productively. Adam Smith, not a Stoic but an economic thinker, reminds us that it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. By recognizing and validating our colleagues' interests, we can find solutions that meet the needs of both sides, strengthening the relationship in the process. This also applies in more personal relationships. By understanding the interests of our friends and family, we can support them in ways that truly resonate with their needs and desires. This not only improves the quality of our interactions, but also deepens the bonds that unite us. And now, a question for you to reflect on. Have you ever thought about how recognizing self-interest can improve your own relationships? How can you apply this understanding the next time you face an interpersonal challenge? By adopting this perspective, we not only develop greater understanding and acceptance of others, but also learn to negotiate and collaborate in ways that respect everyone's interests involved. This is a vital skill that allows us to build stronger and more resilient relationships. How can you make this change in your approach to relationships? Truth 7. Projection of thoughts and feelings. Ever notice how sometimes we interpret other people's actions and words through our own emotional lenses? This phenomenon, known as projection, happens when we attribute our own thoughts, feelings, and insecurities to others. This can create a series of misunderstandings and even conflicts, mainly because we're reacting not to reality, but to a distorted perception of it. Understanding how and why we project can be a crucial step in improving our relationships and reducing unnecessary conflicts. When we feel insecure or threatened, it's common to project these feelings as a form of emotional defense. For example, if we're feeling rejected or inadequate, we might interpret a neutral comment from a friend as critical or dismissive, when in fact, they may not have intended that. Projection not only distorts our perception of others' intentions, but also prevents us from dealing with our own feelings effectively. Instead of confronting and working through our insecurities, we end up fighting ghosts, meaning problems that don't exist outside of our own minds. So, how can we begin to unravel these projections and build healthier interactions? A first step is cultivating greater self-awareness. This involves taking a pause to reflect on our emotional reactions before attributing them to others. Asking ourselves, is this really about them or am I seeing something of myself in this, can be revealing. Moreover, practicing open communication is essential. When we feel bothered or uncertain about someone's intention, seeking clarification directly can help avoid misunderstandings. This not only gives us a clearer view of the situation, but also strengthens relationships through honest dialogue and shared vulnerability. Now let's reflect together. Have you found yourself projecting your feelings onto someone recently? How did this perception influence your reaction? It can be an eye-opening experience to observe these moments and learn from them. Recognizing when we're projecting and taking steps to correct it not only improves our relationships, but also helps us grow personally. By facing our own insecurities directly, rather than seeing them in others, we empower ourselves to live more authentically and less conflictually. How about we see this as an opportunity not only to improve how we relate to others, but also to better understand ourselves? Let's turn this challenge into a chance to develop clearer and more empathetic communication. Are you ready to take the next step in this journey of self-discovery and improving interpersonal relationships? Truth 8. Different values. Ever found yourself in a situation where, despite your best efforts to understand someone, it simply seemed like you were speaking different languages? This can happen because often people have fundamentally different values that shape their worldviews and behaviors. These differences in values can be the source of conflicts, but they also offer a rich opportunity for mutual growth and understanding if approached with respect and openness. Consider how our values are formed. They come from a complex mix of influences, including culture, family, personal experiences, and education. Therefore, it's not surprising that two people can have very different perspectives on what is right or wrong, important or trivial. These divergences can be about big issues, like political or religious beliefs, or about more everyday things, like the best way to raise children or manage money. When these differences in values arise in interactions, whether in the workplace, personal relationships, or public discussions, they can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts. However, recognizing and respecting these differences is crucial for achieving peaceful and constructive coexistence. To navigate these often turbulent waters, it's essential to develop an attitude of mutual respect. This means actively listening, trying to understand not only what the other person is saying, but why they believe it. It's not about always agreeing, but about seeking to understand the validity of different perspectives within their own contexts. Furthermore, it's important to cultivate empathy. Putting yourself in the other person's shoes can help you see beyond superficial differences and recognize the common human emotions and experiences we all share. This can turn a potential conflict into an opportunity to strengthen bonds and expand horizons. Now think of a recent situation where you encountered differences in values with someone. How did you handle it? Do you think you could have done something differently to promote better understanding? Ultimately, approaching differences in values with respect and openness not only avoids conflicts, but also enriches our own life experience. It exposes us to new ideas and perspectives, challenging us to think more broadly and grow as individuals. So the next time you encounter divergent values, see it as a chance to learn and expand your horizons. How can you move towards a more constructive and respectful dialogue, even when you deeply disagree? Let's explore these differences together, not as barriers, but as bridges to deeper and more respectful understanding. Number 9. Motivational differences. Ever stop to think about how personal motivations influence our actions and interactions, both personally and professionally? Each person is driven by a unique set of motivations, which not only direct what they do, but also how and why they do it. Understanding these differences can significantly transform the way we interact with each other, improving communication and strengthening relationships. Motivations can be influenced by a variety of factors, including personal goals, values, needs, and past experiences. Some people are motivated by challenges and achievements, while others seek security and stability, or even personal relationships and recognition. These motivations are not just small internal engines, they are the forces that shape the landscape of our lives. In the workplace, for example, understanding what motivates each team member can be crucial for effective leadership. When leaders can align work tasks and goals with employees' individual motivations, they not only increase satisfaction and productivity, but also foster a more harmonious and engaged work environment. And what about personal relationships? Here, understanding motivations can help resolve conflicts and deepen connections. Knowing what drives the people we love allows us to support them more effectively and sensitively. For example, if you know your partner is highly motivated by adventure and new experiences, you can seek joint activities that feed this need, strengthening the relationship. So how can we begin to better understand others' motivations? A good starting point is simply to ask, and most importantly, listen carefully. Ask questions that encourage people to talk about what motivates them and pay attention not only to the words but also to the enthusiasm and energy with which they speak about their interests and aspirations. In addition to asking, observe how people act in different situations. Actions often speak louder than words and can reveal deep motivations that the person may not even be fully aware of. And you? Have you considered what really motivates you? And how can this understanding of yourself and others improve your interactions? By becoming more aware of others' motivations and our own, we open doors to richer and more meaningful interactions. This not only improves our ability to work and live with others, but also enriches us as individuals, making us more empathetic, understanding, and effective in our relationships. How about we delve more deeply into these motivations and transform our interactions in ways we never imagined possible? Truth number 10, post-decision rationalization. Have you ever noticed how, after making a decision, we sometimes find ourselves justifying it in a way that makes sense with the image we have of ourselves? This process, known as post-decision rationalization, is a fascinating way to understand how our mind works to maintain consistency in our self-image. This phenomenon not only reveals much about how we think and make decisions, but also about how we can seek greater self-awareness and authenticity in our lives. Post-decision rationalization occurs because, as human beings, we have an intrinsic need to perceive ourselves as coherent and rational. When a decision already made does not easily align with our values or self-image, we may unconsciously adjust our reasoning or alter our perception of the facts to make everything seem more consistent. This can be as simple as justifying an impulsive purchase as necessary, or as complex as redefining our beliefs and attitudes after significant life choices. Understanding this mechanism is not just an exercise in intellectual curiosity, it has important practical implications. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This highlights how often our rationalizations are not just ways of adjusting decisions to what we wish to be, but also manifestations of our internal fears and anxieties, more than responses to the objective reality of our actions. By recognizing when we are rationalizing decisions, we can begin to question more deeply our motivations and behaviors. This encourages us to live more authentically, aligned with our true values, rather than simply creating justifications to accommodate choices that may not be the best for us. How can we then cultivate this self-awareness and reduce post-decision rationalization? First, it's useful to adopt an attitude of humility and openness to error. Recognizing that we don't always make the wisest or ideal decisions allows us to revisit and reassess those choices without a rigid commitment to justify them at all costs. Additionally, regularly reflecting on our decisions can be extremely valuable. This can be done through journaling, discussions with trusted friends, or even therapy. Such practices help us understand our thought patterns and identify when we are distorting reality to fit a certain self-image. Finally, ask yourself, am I defending this decision because I truly believe in it, or because I need to believe that I made the right choice? This question can be a powerful catalyst for deeper and more honest introspection. Now let's look at the last major decisions we made. How do they reflect who we are and what we value? And where might we have shaped our justifications to preserve our self-image? By confronting these questions, not only do we improve our ability to make more conscious and authentic decisions in the future, but we also become more integral and true to ourselves. Let's together encourage a commitment to authenticity and self-awareness, transforming not only how we make decisions, but also how we live our lives. How about applying these Stoic truths and observing the changes in your life? Subscribe to our channel and get ready to explore even more of these powerful philosophies in our upcoming videos. Together, let's discover how ancient wisdom can guide us to a more balanced and fulfilled future. See you soon.